Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. It's your girl Beloved and I'm back with a new recipe for the channel. Beloved Catering Service is a business where we make cakes, meat pies, ring donuts, spring rolls, samosa and all kinds of fruit drinks and fruit juices, especially sobolo. We also make jollof rice and fried rice for all events and occasions. You can contact us with the information provided on your screen. In today's video, we will be baking and assembling a red velvet cake. Ingredients for the red velvet cake include 1 1/4 cup of full cream milk, 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, 6 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, 2 tablespoons of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of powdered salt, 3/4 cup of red liquid food coloring, 5 cups of all-purpose flour, 6 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of vanilla essence, half cup of lemon juice, 2 1/2 cups of vegetable oil, 6 room temperature eggs, 2 1/2 cups of white sugar, and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch or corn flour, which would all work perfectly. We will also be using 2 cups of homemade icing sugar and 1 sachet of instant whipped cream. Let's make the cake. Dip the pastry brush into the cake goop or homemade cake release, and I'll link that in the description box below. Then brush or grease the baking tin and set it aside. Now pour into a mixing bowl 2 1/2 cups of the flour and add in 1 tablespoon of baking powder and half tablespoon of baking soda. Also add in half tablespoon of powdered salt and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, and then 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Now grab a whisk and mix all the dry ingredients together. Let's make the buttermilk. Pour half a cup of full cream milk into a measuring cup and add half a cup of lemon juice to it. Now stir the milk and the lemon juice together. This will aid it curdle properly, and then set it aside. Let's make the wet ingredients. Scoop 3 tablespoons of butter into another mixing bowl. Then add in 1 cup of oil and half of the pre-measured sugar. With the aid of a hand mixer, combine these wet ingredients together until the mixture becomes very fluffy and light. Now crack 3 of the 6 eggs and ensure that there are no eggshells in it. Add in the eggs one at a time and mix it into the butter, oil, sugar mix. Now add in 1 tablespoon of white vinegar, 1 tablespoon of vanilla essence and half of the liquid food coloring. Now mix everything together. Add in half of the dry ingredients and mix it into the wet ingredients with a wooden spatula. Now add in the buttermilk and mix it in. Add in the other half of the dry ingredients and then mix it into the cake batter. Mix gently and ensure that you do not overmix your cake batter. The batter is mixed just the way I like it. Now pour the cake batter into the greased baking tin. I like to pass the wooden ladle through the batter like this so that it breaks tiny air bubbles and stops it from creating huge holes in the baked cake. Put the baking tin into the oven for 45 minutes or until a toothpick comes out of the cake clean. As the cake bakes, let's make the icing sugar. Pour about 2 cups of white granulated sugar into a blender and blend it into a fine powder. When the sugar blends for a few minutes, mix with a wooden ladle to ensure that everything blends smoothly. After it blends, pour it into a bowl to ensure that it cools off the heat for about 10 minutes, since we will be blending it for the second time for a more finer powder. Let's check on the cake, and as you can see, the cake is baked perfectly. To be sure of this, use a toothpick or a skewer to check if the cake is baked properly. If the cake is well baked, there will be no unbaked particles stuck to it, but if it is not well baked, there will be unbaked cake particles stuck to it, meaning it needs more time to bake. Let the cake sit in the baking tin for 10 minutes so that when you flip it onto a cooling rack, it holds its shape and does not break. Let's bake the second cake layer. Grease the baking tin again with the cake glue and pour the rest of the flour into the mixing bowl used to combine the dry ingredients earlier. Then add in the rest of the cornstarch or corn flour, the rest of the salt, baking soda and baking powder. Also add in the rest of the cocoa powder. Grab a whisk and combine all the dry ingredients together. You could also make the buttermilk like this. First, pour into a measuring cup the lemon juice and then add in the milk. Then give it a good stir and set it aside. Scoop the rest of the butter into another mixing bowl. Add in the oil, the rest of the sugar, and then combine them together. Crack the other 3 eggs and add the eggs in one at a time. Now add in 1 tablespoon of vanilla essence and 1 tablespoon of white vinegar, and then pour in the rest of the red food color as well. Mix all the wet ingredients together. It's time to add in half of the dry ingredients. Mix the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. Add in the buttermilk and then mix it into the butter. Now add in the rest of the dry ingredients and mix it into the butter. Mix gently to ensure that you do not overmix the cake batter to form gluten in it, which will make the cake very tough after it is baked. And I'm very sure you wouldn't like that. And this is it, our well incorporated cake batter. Now pour the cake batter into the well greased cake tin. Place the baking tin into the oven for 45 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean. It's time to assemble the cake. Reblend the powdered sugar once again so that it does not have any granules in it any longer. I trimmed off the top layers of the cakes with a serrated knife, and this is the look. I'm using a love-shaped cookie cutter to cut loaves out of the cake's top layer I trimmed off earlier. And these are the love-shaped cakes. Now use your hands to break the rest of the cake pieces into smaller particles. And this is what I meant. And this is our icing sugar, which is also ready for use. Let's make the whipped cream frosting. In another mixing bowl, pour 1 sachet of the instant whipped cream and add half cup of milk to it. Then mix on high speed for 3 to 4 minutes. Do so until a stiff peak is formed. Start by adding in the first cup of icing sugar and mix it together with the whipped cream mixture. Add in another cup of icing sugar and then mix it into the frosting. Now add in 2 tablespoons of milk and the rest of the icing sugar and mix everything together nicely. The whipped cream frosting is ready. Scoop a dollop of frosting onto the cake board on top of a non-slip mat and a turntable. Then use the offset spatula to spread the frosting on the board. Put the first cake layer on the board, press it down gently, and scoop a generous amount of frosting onto the cake. Use the offset spatula to spread the frosting evenly on the cake. Add on the second cake layer and, with the aid of a serrated knife, trim off the edges of the cake. Then spread the frosting on top and sides of the cake. Now pop the cake into the freezer for 30 minutes or in the fridge for an hour. Scoop the rest of the frosting onto the cake and spread the frosting on and around the cake nicely. Now continue the smoothing process with a scraper. Don't worry if the cake is not well covered, because the finishing touch will be the addition of the cake particles and the love shapes I made earlier. Let's add the cake particles around the cake. I kept the cake on a serving tray specifically for this process or finishing touch to the cake we are making today. This will prevent the cake particles from getting everywhere. Now cover the sides of the cake with the cake particles we made earlier. And this is it. Now let's add the loved shaped cakes on top of the cake. Place the loaves angular to each other, that is opposite each other on top of the cake. And this is our red velvet cake. Use a cake server to slice some of the cake and place it on a plate and enjoy. And this is where today's video will end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this every Thursday and Sunday. And I would like to say a very big thank you for watching me until now, wherever you are. God richly bless you. Until we meet again, dear viewers, stay safe.